Welcome to the Work in Real Life podcast. I'm Jenny Winspear.
And I'm Marcus Verrell.
And today we're going to be talking about work-life balance. Hot topic. So Marcus, I want to know, what is work-life balance to you?
Work-life balance. I mean, for me, I think it's a case of, like, it does what it says on the tin, right? The balance between work and life. I think a lot of people get it wrong, but I think in terms of what I would define, it's a bit easier to define what I would call a good work-life balance, right? Okay. To kind of showcase what I think a work-life balance is. But I think it's having the capacity to have a life outside of work.
Okay.
And not letting... I think it's fine if you want work to be your identity. That's fine. That's the case for a lot of people, especially when you're young, you know, on your grind and whatever. Completely respect that. But I think it's having the time to just sit back and think about what you're doing on this rock floating through space, you know? But how about you? How would you define it? And why do you think it's become such a hot topic of debate recently?
So 2 questions in there, and I really like your hot topic one, which I want to come back to.
Go for it.
But I want to start with what is work-life balance to me? Work-life balance is being able to socialise with my friends, get my work done, exercise, and have a bit of free time. And I know that sounds like a lot, but actually someone asked me recently, because obviously we do a few side hustles, you know, we have our day jobs and then we have our social lives, we're in music, we do various bands, and we also do this podcast. And someone said to me, like, how do you find the time to do everything? And I was like, well, Marcus does a podcast. But
I just turn up and have a chat.
I think because I have enough autonomy in work, and I have flexible working, and I can change my hours to suit my lifestyle if I need to, that gives me this feeling of work-life balance.
Yeah.
I can do my life things around work.
Yeah.
I can do work around my life things.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I think that's a way better definition than I provided. So props to you for that. I think it's a very good way to describe it, is like, you know, having the time to do what you want to do as well as work, and having flexibility, I think, is the absolute key to what you'd call a work-life balance.
And that's
for sure.
not just working from home, that's like flexing hours.
Yeah.
I did look it up, what's the definition, because when I started looking into it, I was like, what is work-life balance really? It says, a healthy work-life balance refers to maintaining a harmonious relationship between your work and personal life.
Right.
It involves consciously managing your time and energy to meet both professional and personal commitments, whilst prioritising self-care and well-being.
Oh yeah, the energy point's probably quite a good thing, isn't it? Because I don't think you just want time outside of work to, like, have time outside of work. You almost need, like, the mental capacity to be able to enjoy that time outside of work and pursue things as well that you are interested in, right?
We got there.
Energy.
It's having energy.
More energy, more passion. No, we can't be doing that, but yeah.
So I want to come back to your why is this a hot topic?
Yeah. Why?
Because
Why?
I'm really interested in this. So first of all, I don't think we can have this discussion or answer this question without referring to the pandemic. It's springboarded work-life balance into the forefront of everyone's minds. We know that we can work remotely. Flexible working became way more common practice. So it's a definite nod to the pandemic for improving the visibility of work-life balance. I think it's such a hot topic at the moment because there are different expectations. I feel like we're in a hybrid time where there's an older generation, and I am going to go to the age factor here. There's an older generation who have always learned that working hard, doing your hours, committing the time is going to pay off and give you rewards. Whereas we have a much younger generation coming in who are saying, well, access to jobs for a start is much more visible. They can just get on their phones and look stuff up. But why would they give their all to a job if they're not getting anything back from it?
Yeah.
And I think we kind of sit in the middle. I hope you don't mind me grouping you in the same age group. I know you're a bit younger than me. But do you think we kind of sit in the middle of these two opposing forces where some people are like, just get on with it, do your time, and that's the way work is.
Yeah.
To this new age No, well, I want to get back something.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I want to live my life. My work is not my life. It's a means to live my life.
Yeah.
So, you know, it should be rewarding for me. What is my work-life balance?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of agree with the new way of thinking, to be honest.
Yeah.
I feel like, work hard, like do your time, absolutely, but do it in your time.
Yeah. No, I think we're fortunate enough to, I don't know necessarily what's social or economic environment has facilitated it, but we're fortunate enough to have the time to sort of sit back and actually question what we're doing a bit more. I think in the past, perhaps it was like, well, if I don't work this many hours, there's no feasible way that I'm going to be able to do X, Y, Z. So I'm just going to get my head down and get stuck in. Whereas, and I don't know, again, it might be because we're in a relatively privileged position that we're classed as, I guess, knowledge workers to a certain extent, rather than
the term, but I like it.
I think, well, there's like physical workers, service workers, and knowledge workers, right? Like arguably we sell what we know and make money from it, which gives us the opportunity to kind of sit back and think about and gives us the opportunity to maybe work smarter rather than harder. And I think that's becoming more of the norm, where people go, actually, do I really need to be doing 45-hour weeks doing something I don't enjoy that isn't paying me that much but pays my way? Or if I actually took 2 weeks off to do a bit of self-discovery, find out what I enjoy, maybe take a little bit of a pay cut, but I'm actually working a bit smarter towards where I want to go, that's probably more complementary to ending up having a work-life balance, right? Or achieving whatever we're calling work-life balance.
And I think you're right. And there's also this new thing which I've heard of called quiet quitting. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
So quiet quitting, for those of you who haven't heard of it, is this idea that you're not getting what you need from your employer, so you don't give them your all.
So you're just like doing the bare minimum to get by. And,
exactly. They're going to continue paying your wage. They're not giving you maybe the work-life balance that you want, but, you know, it's a means to an end, so you just give them your bare minimum. And this, contrary to the kind of agreeing with the new age way of thinking previously, this I do not agree with.
Yeah.
I don't like this idea of quiet quitting.
Yeah.
I think it's disrespectful. I think, and this could be an unpopular opinion.
This is, by the way, everyone, this is the most feisty I have ever seen Jenny get about a point. This is serious stuff.
I don't like quiet quitting because, I think if you're employed to do a job, you should always want to deliver your best.
Yeah.
And if your employer is not giving you the work-life balance you deserve or any other benefits that you ask for in that meaning, have the conversation. If they're not going to respect what your needs are, move on. Don't waste your time and their time with this quiet quitting era that's going on. I'm not a fan.
No, I mean, I think that might come down to more of like a personality trait, in that, like, I think we're both quite similar in the rip the band-aid off kind of approach, which I think is probably the best approach, rather than just sitting and ticking over. Like, get out the fucking door. Do you know what I mean? And just, because I don't think you've got to be confident in, like, if you're confident in your ability or capacity to deal with stuff when shit hits the fan, rather than just trying to tick over. Do you know what I mean? Let the shit hit the fan and see where it might take you. Obviously, that is a very privileged thing to be saying, I think, because you're making the assumption that you're of a certain type of value. Like, who's to say that you are actually that valuable or not? But I'd implore anyone to have confidence in their ability to kind of, take some risks and see what might happen to it. Obviously, if you've got to work 6 months doing a job that you don't want to do, save up a bit of cash and then, take a punt and maybe take a bit of a pay cut or move sideways in a career and, stick at something you want to do. If work-life balance is your goal, then the only way you're going to achieve that is by, either speaking up at the job that you don't like, where you don't feel like you're getting what you need, or, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, leaving or buggering off.
So did you know, I looked up a Deloitte survey, and I love a Deloitte survey.
You do love a Deloitte survey.
And the number one thing at the moment that Gen Z and Millennials would look for in a new employer is work-life balance. This is the 2023 study. This is like fresh off the press.
Right.
So they're looking for, what people are looking for.
It's the number one most rated thing, do you say?
It's the number one thing looked for in a new employer. So when you're considering moving jobs, what's the work-life balance situation? And I assume that goes down to things like flexibility, the type of benefits that they offer you, I mean, what else? Now that I'm on this, I was going to start reading them off, and I was like, actually, those are the two things.
What that would be make you feel
like you have a good work-life balance, a culture, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of the time it is probably the feeling that you're actually doing something you want to be doing probably has quite a large bearing on whether you feel as if you've got a good balance, both inside work and outside work. Because if you're at work and you're doing long hours, but you're feeling as if you've got, agency and autonomy, then you're probably going to be less concerned with what you're doing outside of work because you're like, no, I'm where I need to be. I'm doing.
I love my job. I'm fulfilled in this. So actually, I just want to chill out when I get home.
Exactly. So I think being fulfilled at work is probably a large portion of feeling as if you actually have the work-life balance that you want. Do you know what I mean? Because for me personally, I'm not necessarily too tied to my argument either way. I'm relatively apathetic to like what you consider a work-life balance because I think it's completely individual.
So do I.
And I think there's almost been this overexposure to this idea that like you shouldn't be working too hard or you shouldn't be doing too much of one thing because you're going to get burnout and all this sort of stuff. And that isn't to discredit people that have experienced burnout, and I'm not saying that isn't a thing. I've definitely been on the cusp of feeling burnt out before. But like we were literally having the conversation before we started doing this podcast today about how do you end up doing so much? And it's like, well, because I want to, right? So it
doesn't feel like so much effort. It doesn't feel like I'm not balancing work and life because I'm feeling fulfilled from doing this.
Exactly. And there's always a sacrifice to be made, right? It's like when I started going to the gym when I was younger and all my friends weren't, and they were like, how have you got the time? And I'm like, well, because instead of going to the pub on Friday after work, I'm going to the gym. Or when people are like, how have you got the time to do your band? And I'm like, well, rather than sitting there watching Netflix, I'm going to do gigs, there is to a certain extent always a choice, and I think that as long as you're empowered enough to make choices, then that's how you achieve work-life balance. But I don't think you should pressure anyone into telling them what that is.
No.
I think it's individual.
Do you think there are different times in life where you should sacrifice work-life balance for your career, for example, or for your family,
for long-term?
Going both ways.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a massive advocate of deferred gratification. I think I've tried the instant gratification thing, so like pursued hedonism through my teenage years. Didn't really work out too well. So like the ability to kind of defer gratitude, grind, like be on my grind now. Like I'm on the cusp of being 30, and I would say when I went to uni when I was like 22 is when I really turned it on, like in terms of getting stuck into stuff and trying. And it's kind of had this compounding effect where went to uni, got really stuck in, left uni, interned, got the job that I wanted, really grinded to get the job, got promoted, got a new job, really grinded the job, got promoted, started a band, started a podcast, and it's kind of compounding. And in my head, I'm like, well, this is my 20s. I need to be putting the work in right now to build for the rest of my life. I'm not saying that's right for everyone, but that's definitely right for me because I just feel like I'm never going to have the opportunity in the rest of my life to be able to devote as much time to my development as I am now because of the life goals that I have, right? So like in my head, I'd quite like I just got engaged, I'm getting married next year. That's the start of sort of in my head a new chapter in my life where it's like I'm probably going to then end up wanting kids. I'm going to have other people to keep alive and have to think about. So in my head, I'm like, I want a foundation of like knowledge, money, connections, that's going to sustain the life that I want to lead in the future. But as I said, that's not to say that everyone needs to do that. But I think I think it's short-sighted to not at least approach life like that slightly. Do you know what I mean?
I think people have different needs in life as well. Like some people really need time to decompress from a day and to switch off before bed. They need time to get out in nature and take in the surroundings. They need time to do their hobbies because without all of that they're less productive. So but other people are quite happy to work their butt off, as you say you are now, and just grind it because they know that it's going to have long-term gain, and maybe that other stuff will come later. But my question to you, what if you get hit by a bus tomorrow?
Oh, here we go with this one. I mean, well, this is why there's and I can never remember, this always happens, I can never remember the exact quotes that I've listened to, but I kind of consume a lot of stuff. But there's like a ratio of especially financially, like there's like the 3-3-3 ratio, I think, or it's like 33% of your money should, you know, prepare for the future. 30% of your money should sustain you now. Right. I think this is actually wrong. I think it's more like more money should be going away to prepare for your future, but then more money and time should be spent on stuff that you're doing now. But there has to be a balance, right? So the assumption that you're going to die tomorrow, could happen. And everyone always says life's really short, but life's the longest thing you're ever going to do.
And to your point before of saying, if you're fulfilled in the stuff that you're doing, surely that is work-life balance anyway.
Exactly.
Like, we're sat here recording out of hours. You know, something that is rewarding. Like, I'm enjoying this conversation. Hopefully you are. It doesn't feel like we're sacrificing our personal time to do this, because it's enjoyable. For sure.
And I do I do completely agree. But like, how do you feel about sort of old adages that people say, like, if you want something done, ask a busy person to do it, or you only live once, and all that sort of stuff when you're talking about work-life balance?
So I found this really interesting when you wrote down this question, because I actually really love that saying, because I think it's very true.
Which one, the YOLO one or both?
No, I think if you want something done, give it to a busy person is true, mainly because of how I am as a person. I know that when I'm super busy, I am much more productive because I work to deadlines. This is something that we talked about before. If I have too much time to do something, I will procrastinate and I will put it off. And if I'm really busy and someone comes to me with a list of 3 other things that I need to do on top of that, I'll work it into my schedule. I'm very organized and I'll plan all that out. Whereas if I've got loads of time, it just probably won't get done until it's really needed.
Just keep kicking the can down the road. So you're not more of like because there's the I think it's the eat the frog model. A boss told me this ages ago. Apparently it's like a model, but apparently, and it actually works. And one thing I did take away from him as like a boss to me was like, oh right, yeah, that's probably quite a good way to live your life. But basically, do the hardest thing you're going to do in the day make the hardest thing you do in the day the first thing you do in the day, because then everything after that feels easy. So whether that's like the workout you really don't want to do, the email that you really don't want to send, the pitch deck that you've got to put together, the hole you've got to dig in the garden, whatever it is, do that first in the day. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I confess to every day I'm just, killing it, doing the hardest thing I can every day, because that's definitely not the case. But as something to aspire to, one, it gives you a tremendous sense of like well-being, because you're like, I've accomplished already. I've slayed that dragon today. That's great. But 2, it then also makes you feel as if you've got way more time. Right. So get the shit thing out of the way, and then you're off to a winner, right?
You're off for the day. So going back to the point of, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. I also want to caveat that with the fact that some people don't know how to say no when they are super busy, and they will continue taking it on. And I wondered what you think about this ability to just say no.
Yes.
How important is it, and how important is it for work-life balance as well, to be able to recognize when you're over capacity and actually just say no to something?
Well, I think, unfortunately, the only way to ever know that you're at capacity is to breach capacity most of the time. You fill a glass up with water, you don't know it's overflowing until it's gone over the top, right? You can actually see that happening, so it makes it a bit easier. But when it comes to like your capacity to execute stuff well, it's very difficult to judge. And I think everyone's probably a lot more capable to do more stuff than they think they are. It's just a case of how badly do you want it. And without making this sound like one of those fitness motivational videos, I can guarantee people have a lot more in the tank than they think they do. It's just a case of how much do you want it. And that's why I think like an exercise of writing down goals and things like that are really good. They sound super cheesy, and it is a bit cheesy, or you haven't got to write them down, but having an idea in your head of like, I want to achieve this way more than anything else. Then that early morning when you don't want to get up, if like, I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger who said that he stuck something on his ceiling and was like, I want to be Mr. Olympia. So every morning that he woke up, that was the first thing that he saw. So if you're waking up and you're like, oh, I don't really feel like it today or whatever, the first thing you're thinking of at the day is like,
I'm going to be Mr. Olympia.
Yeah, I really want to do this. Do you know what I mean? Which again sounds super cheesy and whatever, but whatever capacity you think you have probably got more in the tank. But that's not to say that burnout doesn't exist, because I've definitely reached capacity on stuff before, and you just see that like your focus starts to drift off. Your people that you're closest to, you end up having arguments with, you know, and it all just, life just gets a bit spicy when you're on the edge. Do you know what I mean? But I do think it's worth trying to get to capacity at least a couple of times every few years.
See how you can handle it.
Just to see how you can handle it, right? Because that's resilience training in and of itself. Like, say yes to things until you're like, holy shit, but just maybe don't say yes to stuff that's going to really land you in the shit if you can't do it, you know?
Yeah.
But what do you think? Do you think it's like, does everyone have a capacity, or is it like, is that a choice to feel burnt out? Or
reflecting on my personal experience, I do say when I feel stressed.
Yeah.
I think stress is different to burnout. I want to clarify there's a difference between the two. And it doesn't even have to be that I am working really long hours. It's more that if I don't have the mental capacity to take on another spinning plate in my head, I will say, I'm really sorry, but I'm at full capacity at the moment. And so as I've referenced before, I like this new way of thinking that like we should leave work at the time our contracted hours finish. Like that, I don't like the idea of, you know, we'll stay and work late unless you really have to. My idea of it is that if you are working late, you should get the time back. But I will also say no if I am at capacity and would have to stay late to get something done.
Yeah, for sure.
Because my life outside of work is very important. My work is very important to me, don't get me wrong. But my life is also very important, and I want to go and spend time with my family. I want to get out for a surf in the evening. I want to, you know, go out for dinner with my friends. I'm not going to sacrifice those things to take on an extra thing at work if there's somebody else that can do it.
Yeah, that's fair enough. But do you think employers are doing enough to like address that? Because I know it's so easy, and I'm sure you've been in a position where it gets to, because I'm in early and I finish early, which where I work's quite unusual because I'm probably in an hour and a half, 2 hours before anyone else, and I leave 2 hours before anyone else, and I can kind of see on their faces when I'm leaving at 4 o'clock, they're thinking, oh, he's already leaving. Do you know what I mean? But I love that feeling.
But they didn't see you get in.
They didn't see me get in. But like, do you think employers are doing enough to enable people to be able to kick back and say, do you know what? Actually, I've done my contracted hours this week. Like,
I think that if you give that response to an employer, they will be offended by it. Yeah. Because I don't think it's the right way of dealing with it. Yeah. I think if you're asked to do something and you're unable because you have a personal commitment, you say, I'm really sorry, I actually can't do that tonight. And unfortunately, it does come down to then whoever's trying to give you that task to try and source somebody else to do it or do it themselves. I don't know. I don't know how that gets resolved, but I think it's within everybody's right to say, I'm at capacity. Do this. Yeah. Whether it's what can an organisation do and are they doing enough? I don't think it's one of their main priorities at the moment. I do think it's down to individual responsibility, but I do think that having the conversation needs to be much more open. I think at the moment it's still thought of, what do you mean you won't work later? Yeah. Like, that's crazy. And it goes to that point I was talking about, that we're in this hybrid at the moment of this older generation of working hard, getting paid off, and this newer generation of, well, actually, I have a life outside of work, and, you know, I like what I do, but it's not everything to me. Yeah,
I think it's a funny one, isn't it? Like, especially when, like, I'm sure we've both had to, like, attend events or whatever after work hours. And it's still, I've worked in places where it's like, you're kind of looked down upon if you turn around and say, oh, no, actually, I'm busy that night. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Even though
I actually take that time back now. If I need to be in an event, I will.
You go out of your way.
Into my, like, I do timesheet and I will leave early on a Friday.
Yeah, because you've done the event.
I worked till 9 o'clock one night at an event.
And I also think the irony is that when I've been in certain jobs that perhaps weren't necessary, or I'm doing extra work. So say, for example, there's an event on a Thursday night and I'm like, and it's just been put in the calendar this week, but I've had a bongo gig booked for months.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
You can't turn down your gig.
Yeah, and I'm like,
committed.
well, I'm doing that gig
Yeah.
to give me supplementary income for me to be able to build my life outside of work and within work, because life is now so bloody expensive. So in my view, for an employer to then kick off at that, I just think is like not okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And if it's all given in good time, if it's like, right, in 6 months, guys, we've got this big event, we need you all there.
Yeah.
The way to approach that is don't come in the morning, come in at 12.
Yeah.
We want you there to be late. And it's just such an easy way to do it. And it just shows respect, right?
Yeah.
And I think the ancillary benefit of being an employer like that is if you treat people like adults, they will act like adults.
Yeah.
And no one likes to feel belittled. And time is such a valuable thing to, I would say, everyone, maybe more so, like you were saying there with Gen Z and Millennials, like I think time is our most valuable asset. So I think anything an employer can do to basically make people feel empowered over their own time.
Yeah. It gives you work-life balance.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Nice. So now it's time for our quick fire round, and we're going to play a game called Do It or Just Say No. So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and then you can ask me a couple of questions.
I'm slightly anxious about this one.
Okay. So this is in relation to work-life balance, and I'm just going to fire the first one.
Go for it.
Working from bed.
Absolutely not. No way.
Just say no.
Just say no. I mean, if you've got to, then yeah, but no.
Yeah, I'm with you. My back gets sore trying to
Well, and you're gonna get absolutely nothing done in bed, are you? Let's be honest.
And you're usually hungover. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so responding to work emails during a family dinner.
Depends how important the email is, and if it was my baby, like if it's like my startup or my business. Absolutely. Sorry, mum and dad. At this stage in my life. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm answering the email, yeah.
Okay. Joining a team call on your day off.
Or probably not. I would just...
Well, it's a really important meeting.
I don't know that anything's that important. unless it's my business. I'm like, come on, it's not that important.
Okay. Having a mandatory fun team building event on a weekend.
Oh, I'd probably... Oh, I'm so on the fence with that, because I think it's like a good thing to have good team culture, but at the same time, it's like you should just do that at work during work time. Like, come on. If it's important to the business for that to happen, then do it on work time.
But if you liked the event,
if I liked it, depends on the event. Like, what, beer pong? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Sign me up. I'm there.
Attending a last-minute meeting on a Friday. Do it or just say no.
Just say no.
Okay,
that is a terrible habit to get into, and I mean. It depends how long the meeting is, but I would encourage you to say no.
Yep. Okay. Nice. Do you want to ask me a couple?
Right. Let's see. Taking on additional projects when you've got loads of tight deadlines.
I'm gonna say just say no.
Really? You're not gonna push the edge?
Push the edge.
Push the edge. No. Yeah,
I don't want to reach burnout. Yeah. I'm too stressed already.
Working over the weekend to meet a client's request.
I'm going to say yes to that one. Just do it. Do it, because I would take that time back. Right. I think clients are very important. And if they had a deadline to meet, then I would want to make sure that we could help them achieve that goal without having to lose the client.
Yeah.
But then the following week, I would say, I'm not
See you later, guys.
Yeah, I've been working Saturday and Sunday. That's me done.
Yeah, fair enough. Completing a lengthy report with an unrealistic time frame because the CEO has asked. This always happens. You've got to play the game.
I really want to say no, but do you know what? With my CEO, I probably would say, look, is not achievable. But I would say we probably need to get extra help on this. I've got a lot of other stuff going on.
Yeah.
I'd have that conversation. So I'm going to say just say no, but I can imagine a situation I would say yes.
Yeah, I think it very much depends. If you're in your dream job and you want to keep that job and you're like, do you know what? I've really got to be,
impressing
the CEO, then do the report,
Yeah.
How about covering for a colleague who consistently finishes work early?
I would not even enter that conversation.
Sorry, what?
I'd be like, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know when they're leaving. What? Who?
Who, me? What? No, I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that would really wind me up.
Yeah, and do you know what? I think presenteeism, we talked about it before, being in the office, physically present, and leaving, like, what does that say to somebody's work output? You don't actually know that they could have been there like you are at stupid hours
so
in
you
the
don't want to
morning.
even have the conversation because you're like, you don't want someone to be judged on the time they've spent at work.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got no say on this. I don't know what their performance deliverables are. I don't know what agreement they have.
It would piss you off a little bit though, right? Surely.
For someone leaving early, it depends if I was covering for them. Like, if I was doing their work, then I'd probably be like, they leave early all the time.
They're like meant to be doing the same role as you, and they're literally doing less time, and then you're being asked to cover, and it's like, okay, that would suck a little bit. Okay, so to round this all off, we're obviously going to do our 30 before 30, and this podcast 30 before 30 is how important is establishing boundaries between personal and professional life before you're 30.
Okay, I think it is important. And I don't usually agree with these ones. I usually say, no, I was going to say,
this is not like you.
I know, just changing things up a bit.
Yeah, switching it up.
I think coming into your 30s, you're a lot more sure of who you are. You're confident in yourself, I hope, a bit more than you were in your early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think boundaries are a really important aspect to your well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And establishing that within the workplace, being able to just say no, as well as in your personal lives. I'm not going to respond to your message immediately. I have a busy job.
Mm-hmm.
I think those kind of boundaries are really important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this one's a yes for me. I think yes.
So yes from straight in my basket. Yeah, I actually really agree. I think by the time you're 30, maybe even probably even before, you really do need to establish boundaries so you can manage people's expectations of what's feasible and what's not. That's not to say, don't say, yes to a few things every now and then if you're really trying to achieve something, because you will have to go the extra mile to achieve anything. You can't, do the bare minimum and expect the maximum. But you do have to know how to be like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I am going on holiday. I'm turning my phone off. Yeah. I'm turning my emails off. Go away. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Work in Real Life podcast. I've been Marcus Verrell.
And I'm Jenny Winspear.
Don't forget to like, follow and subscribe, and see you on the next one.